All right, Scott, you still see my my title screen?
I do.
Lovely. All right, everyone, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us for today's live demonstration of virtual labs. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on what part of the world you are from. Let's see. Just going to. Before we jump in, let's like to run through a few quick items. First of all, as you probably noticed, the audio is muted, but we definitely do want to hear from you. We'd love questions, so please use the question section or the live chat at any point. And you can either ask myself or Scott any questions. We're always happy to answer them. Also, we've got an interactive poll lined up, so stay on the lookout for those. And finally, this session is being recorded and will be shared following the webinar. So don't worry if if you're not able to stick around for the entire thing. We'll be sharing it afterwards. So just a quick bit about Appsembler. Appsembler, we are a software company, and we provide an experiential learning platform that lets you easily deliver immersive learning experiences to your customers, your employees, and your users. Here are some of the organizations that we are proud to work with today to deliver their online learning. As you can see, they range from large universities to enterprises to software companies, and we're very proud to work with some of these types of organizations. And I know I'm breezing through this stuff. Let's do a quick introduction. Scott, do you want to kick us off?
Yeah, absolutely. So Scott Taylor, VP of Sales here at Appsembler, currently based in Brooklyn, New York. And yeah, so I'll be running through the demo today, and nice to meet everybody.
Thanks, Scott. Hi, everyone. My name is Cesar Rufo. I am the VP of Marketing here at Appsembler. I am on the West Coast, based in Seattle, Washington. And I will be your MC for today as well. So just a quick rundown of the agenda. We'll quickly talk about why we are here. We always like to start with the why before we start diving into the details. And then we'll give an overview of virtual labs. And then we're just going to spend a lot of time showing you what the actual product looks like, what it looks like from both the course author instructor experience and also from the learner's experience. And you'll see how easy it is to spin up software within virtual labs. And hopefully we'll have time at the very end for Q&A. But let's start off with a quick poll. I'm going to hit the poll button right now. The question is, what type of training do you offer today? And your options are developer training, product or software training, both, other, or none. Lovely. I think we've got almost everybody in there. Okay, I'm going to hit the end poll button, and I'm going to share the results. So it looks like the bulk of us here, well, it's good to see that everyone here is offering some type of training. I think you're all in the right place. We're seeing the most popular option here is both. Looks like most folks are offering both developer and software training, and other folks are offering a mix of either developer or product or software training. Thank you so much all for that context. It's helpful to know. So before we dive in, like I said, we'll start off with the why. Why are we here? And we're here because ultimately software training is not easy. There are many challenges to training when it comes to technical training or software training. We'll actually briefly cover the three big challenges that we often hear when it comes to software training. So the first challenge that we're often hearing is keeping up with the pace of change, keeping content relevant and fresh. You don't want to be training people on yesteryear's software. As we all know, the technology industry is moving faster than ever, and we've seen an acceleration in recent years. Just to briefly illustrate this, one of the things that I like to think about often is just the time it took to get to 50 million users. If you look at some of the most game-changing technologies in the past century, it took the landline telephone 75 years to just hit 50 million users. The automobile, 62 years. You fast forward to those recent technologies, Facebook took 3 years to hit 50 million users. And technology, as you all know, is moving faster and changing faster than ever. So the new norm really is we're seeing product releases every day versus every year. Some of you may remember when software was released once a year and distributed on physical CDs or even on like floppy disks. With on-demand cloud-based services that we have today, we're seeing that's continually updating. So with that question, how does your training keep up? We'll talk about that in a bit during the live demonstration part. The second challenge that we often hear when it comes to software training, as many of you are probably very familiar with, is the modern learner. You constantly need to compete for your learners' limited brain space and attention spans. You see that image on the right side, that's what we're all looking like quite often. The average worker, here are just some fun stats we pulled together. You've probably seen some shape or form, but basically the average worker is just challenged with short attention spans, information overload, constant multitasking. They receive, as you can see, 121 emails a day. They're constantly context switching, which makes it extremely difficult for them to actually stay focused and engaged with your online learning or any type of learning. So what is the key to engaging the modern learner? We've found here at Appsembler that learning by doing is key. We truly believe in the power of learning by doing. Some of you may have seen on the right-hand side this learning pyramid before, and we believe that while the numbers and the percentages here are often debatable, we care less about the actual percentages and more about just the general overview, like the general concept where practice is a much more effective teaching method versus, say, lecture or just consuming and reading content, particularly when it comes to more technical types of content. So if you want to be able to deliver that type of hands-on learning by doing teaching, how do you do so? Especially when it comes to software training, we find that the best way to do it, is often a challenge. It's actually really hard. So when it comes to software training, the third challenge that we often see is setting up and maintaining these types of hands-on immersive exercises for your learners. For example, a lot of folks that we see, they have physical labs where they actually have machines on site. And this is a challenge because it often is associated with high costs. You need to have a physical dedicated space, and sometimes there are scheduling limitations, whether it's having your trainers on site when your learners are available, or being able to having to fly your learners on site, or not even being able to provide your learners with that access to that physical lab where your software is loaded up. Another challenge that we often hear about when it comes to just setting up and maintaining physical when it comes to setting up and maintaining hands-on exercises is using learners' computers. We often see folks where they'll provide learners with access to the software such that they can install it on their own machines. But as many of you have probably experienced, there's a high setup overhead here, especially when it comes to like your learners having different machines, or some might be on Macs, other person might be on PC, or some might even be Linux users. Some of them, they might have corporate installation policy limits. It's all very time consuming, and it actually inhibits in many instances, the learning experience. And sometimes, often instructors are flying blind because they don't actually see what the learners are doing. They're not able to measure their progress. So this is a big challenge with using learners' computers. And then another option that we often see folks do when it comes to providing hands-on exercises is they actually provide simulations. As many of us know, simulations are, while they can be effective in some cases, they're actually not the real thing. They lack your learners that lack access to real-world experience, and simulations, especially when it comes to software training, when your software is constantly changing with new updates, your simulation can very quickly become obsolete. You're not factoring the latest updates or feature releases. So that's often a challenge that we hear as well. I know I flew through that really quickly because I want to get you all to the demonstration part as quickly as possible. So here's a quick overview of virtual training labs. Um, let's see. So virtual labs are essentially known as practice labs or virtual training environments or sandboxes, and they essentially make it easy for you to create student lab environments where students can conduct hands-on exercises using software or writing code. So there's essentially no IT or software setup because your learners, they'll be accessing your software within their browser. All they need is just a browser and an internet connection, which is often a big game changer. And you have event-based versus on-demand types of virtual labs. We often like to think of virtual labs as a universal adapter where it's very predictable. Just like you can go to any country in the world and you know that your electrical device will work in the country's power outlets, so do virtual labs. They give you the same certainty that no matter what type of laptop or machine that your learner brings to the training, whether it's a Mac or a PC or Linux, the virtual lab will definitely work on their machine as long as they have a browser and an internet connection. The predictability and the consistency is really important. If you're an instructor and if you have limited class time, you don't want to spend the entire class troubleshooting why the software won't install on someone's Windows machine. You want to have a consistent learner experience so that each student's lab is identical and it's personal to them, and you eliminate any unnecessary unknowns. So this is an analogy that we often like to use. The benefits of virtual labs, as you can see, there are many, and they're all different types of virtual labs that but the benefits are just fewer IT headaches. You don't have to rely on your own IT team to set up learners on individual machines. You're able to provide dynamic hands-on content, as Scott is about to show us in a bit, and you're able to boost engagement and retention and accelerate adoption. And it ultimately just leads to a much more seamless learner experience. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing my screen. I'm going to pass the mic off to you, Scott. And also, if you have any questions, everybody, feel free to chat them or send them to us in the Q&A box.
Great, thank you, Caesar. That was fantastic. I'm going to now share my screen. Caesar, do we have the experiential learning platform up?
Yes, we do.
Great. All right, well, this is where we start to get into the hands-on portion and the demo portion of the day. And you see here, this is welcome to Appsembler's experiential learning platform. We get the question a lot, well, what's an experiential learning platform? It sounds a little bit like buzzwords and jargon. An experiential learning platform is the evolution of online learning. Basically, this is the type of platform that goes from simply consuming content, which is what most online learning has been historically, to actually going into a hands-on practical exercise. There's two portions of Appsembler's platform. One is Tahoe. If you were on the demo yesterday, it was a really great demo on what you can do with Tahoe. And this is our course delivery part of the platform. If you didn't get to view that, please leave a comment for Caesar in the chat, and we'll send you along that link. It was a really amazing demonstration of the power of Tahoe. Virtual Labs is the other side of the platform, which is really more the hands-on, and that's what we're here to talk about today. The reason that we have these two parts, kind of going back to the learning pyramid, as you think about the top of the pyramid, it's mostly consumption. So you're in lectures, you're reading materials, you're watching videos. And the bottom of the pyramid, where you start to get into that more hands-on, is really where we think that the true value is. And you can think about it in the real world, learning chemistry, right? There's value in going into an auditorium and listening to a lecture about the different reactions between chemicals, but nothing beats putting on the goggles and the lab coat and actually mixing them up and seeing it for yourself. And so what Virtual Labs does is basically mimic that practical hands-on experience, but particularly for software training. So today we're going to cover a number of different things, and I'm gonna breeze through it, but hopefully cover the most important topics as much as possible. So there's three parts that I want to show you today. The first is the learner perspective. We at Appsembler believe that the learner comes first. In all that we do, we try and put the learner first, thinking about, as we build this platform, what is the best learner experience? As Caesar talked about, learner engagement is very low. Everyone is very distracted. And really what we want to do is make sure that we optimize for that experience. We're going to start there and see what they see. And then we'll go back to what we call Studio. And Studio is our course authoring tool. And this is where you as a course author can actually take those labs and put them into your online course very seamlessly and easily. And we'll walk you through how to do that. And then finally, we'll go into Virtual Labs itself. We have a management console for that, where you can see how you can actually create your own virtual labs customized for the type of learning that you want to do, and really deliver the exact training that you want to deliver without the distraction of, again, software setup and downloads and installs and provisioning. So with that, without further ado, let's jump into the learner experience. So this would be an example of a course where a learner has come in. This is our experiential learning platform. There's a lot of stuff here that we're going to kind of skip because this is more about Tahoe, and again, that's yesterday's. But let's say we wanted to teach somebody about a SaaS product. You might have a SaaS product. The great thing about Virtual Labs is it supports a number of different types of software applications, whether it's SaaS or Linux-based desktop software. We're going to start off with the SaaS because it's something sort of everyone can relate to. We'll use WordPress as an example, but you can imagine for yourself what it would look like with your own application. So as a learner, I'm coming through here and I'm watching videos. Again, this is on Tahoe. And so I'm consuming content, I'm reading information, I'm watching these videos, I'm learning about whatever software I'm about to actually practice. And then I go through and do maybe a couple hands-on assessments. And this is that point where it starts to pivot from just consuming content and actually putting it into practice and really testing your knowledge and testing your skills. So I know a basic amount about modern web page design. So let's find the navigation bar. Oh, no, I guess I don't. So navigation bar goes here. We got a hero image, content, and then obviously contact us. So great. Now I'm starting to get hands-on. I'm starting to touch the screen and feel where things go. So let's move forward into the hands-on portion. So this is really where Virtual Labs starts to have great power. If you're one of the people that commented that you do software training or developer training or both, you might have a setup similar to this where if you click on this button, one of your admins gets an email, then they have to go in, spin up a virtual machine, then send that learner an email with the link to the virtual machine, maybe some provisioning involved. Really complicated, long process. Could take up to 24 hours longer, depending on if they're trying to do it over the weekend and you don't have people available. The great thing about Virtual Labs is this is ready to spin up on demand at any point, anywhere, for anyone. So in order to launch a WordPress site or your own SaaS application, all they do is click this button. You notice within seconds, I've got information here about setting up, about accessing this lab. So this is my own personalized login page. I'm logged in as a pretend student, and you see that I've got this numerical URL here. Each individual learner gets their own customized URL, and this is a sandbox environment that they have for themselves to go play around in, do whatever the exercises that you want them to do. Also, it's important to note this is not, in this case, WordPress. This is not a WordPress simulation. This is real WordPress running live in the browser on demand. So I've launched this. I've created this. I logged in a bit earlier and kind of got it set up. And you notice that I have the best WordPress site ever. So now I'm in WordPress and I'm running real life WordPress in my browser instantaneously. No download, no setup, no go to WordPress, enter your credentials, enter your credit card for your free trial, whatever. I'm in this and I'm running. And I could go in here and just do all the normal things that WordPress can do. And I'm not going to belabor that point. I'm not a web designer, and so I'm not going to try and make it super amazing. But let's just say, I've got the best WordPress site ever, but for whatever reason, they say that it's just another WordPress site. No, it's not just another WordPress site. This is an amazing, best WordPress site ever. So I've published it now. Okay, that's live, and I'm ready to go. So now I'm literally modifying a SaaS product in my browser instantaneously to the learner experience that doesn't want to get distracted, that doesn't want to have to go wait for an email, go to some other system. This is a great way to keep your learners engaged and keep them actively participating in your learning. The last thing that you want them to do is have to go to their email, okay, because now they're checking their Slack, now they're checking their Facebook, whatever else they're doing, and they may or may not come back within an appropriate amount of time. So, so I did that modification here to WordPress. I might go back, conduct some other exercise, but let's say there's another thing that you want me to do in WordPress. I'm clicking right back in here, and they're right back where they're left off. You notice it's not just another WordPress site. It saves my changes. It's its own sandbox environment. In your own SaaS product, you're going to obviously have your own SaaS or other type of product. You're going to have your own individual exercises. The great thing about this is they go in, they do the exercises that you want, and then this container gets shut down, deleted, and is gone. No impact. So they're not actually having to test and try the exercise that you want on their own real life application. Great, and obviously Caesar, stop me if there's any questions that we need to answer, but otherwise I will keep pressing on.
Yeah, keep pressing on, Scott. This is we do have like one question or so, but we can. I think you might probably address it in the next exercise that you'll be showing.
Great. So that's one application. Let's say you want something a little bit more complex than WordPress, right? WordPress is pretty straightforward and simple to use. People that are doing complex software. Let's say you're running a data science course. And so we've populated, for example, this Jupyter Python notebook. And so same kind of concept we're going through. And now, obviously, in a real life exercise, you're not going to be training someone on WordPress and Jupyter. These are two very different universes. But they're going to be going through learning the information, taking the assessments. And now, same kind of concept, we get to a Jupyter hands-on. This is, again, where the power of virtual labs comes in. Downloading, provisioning, and installing desktop-based software is a nasty and complicated process. We, again, convert that to a click. So as I click on that, this is a fairly heavy lab that I'm spinning up, so it does take a little bit of time. But again, comparing it, well, that was actually faster than I expected. So sometimes virtual labs impress.
The demo gods are smiling on us today.
that was super fast. But generally speaking, if you think about the process that it would take you to spin up your own Jupyter notebook, running Python, if you know that universe, this is pretty complicated. I've password protected mine, so I'm going to go in here, and voila, I now have a fully operational Jupyter notebook running in my browser on demand. I'm not going to say that I did because I'm a VP of sales and not a software engineer, but we've pre-populated this with a number of different exercises and a number of different learning paths that we might want our student to go on. There's different things that we might want to train them in, for example, data science. And I think in this one, we're going to talk a little bit about relational database. So we're going to talk about using HBase from Python. Again, as sales guy and not a engineer, I have no idea what that means. But hopefully you're a learner as well. But the concept is still the same, right? We're able to deliver as much or as little content and preparation as you wish. So we might have pre-populated this with data sets. In this case, we pre-populated it with clear exercises. We have links out to additional reading that you might want your student to consider as they prepare for conducting the exercises. So a lot of information here for them to read, Hadoop, HBase tables, all of this wonderful stuff. So now you see as learners gone through, they've done this reading. Okay, great. Now we have a little bit of an opportunity to demonstrate some of that information here. So we need to find out through this Python code whether X is less than Y. Looks like it is not. So we are getting this false here. So we are going to actually see if it's greater than Y. And you can see, again, this is a practical exercise. It's a very simple one, but you can imagine the complexity that you can deliver. And so we're going to test what happens. Yep, X is greater than Y, and so I get true here. You might have this back in your learning platform. You might have, enter the result of your work for question number 1. I haven't set it up that way, but just because I clicked into a random notebook there. But this is a great way to kind of go back and have the student bounce back and forth and test their ability to conduct the exercise and then report back to you, yep, I got that one right. Here's my assessment. If I typed it in, here, let's say it was true and this isn't the actual question that I'm solving. Nope, that is not the correct answer. I'll have to go back later and do it. So this is, again, just a simple example of ways in which you can conduct micro exercises, or you could conduct one big long thing. Depends on the type of learning you want to deliver here. Great. And so then I would go back, done this, I've modified my Jupyter notebook, I've done my hands-on assessment. I happen to have been planning to show a different one where I, do my traditional first step in software engineering and do hello world. Yes, great, I got that right. And now I can move on with my training. This could be a more complicated series of assessments tied to that notebook, or it could just be, hey, what's your final answer? Pause there. I've also got other examples here. I'm not going to go into all of them. ReactJS. Again, you can imagine any type of software that you might want to run. This can all be done right here from within the online within the Tahoe platform, and I'll show you how. But this is that learner experience.
This is great, Scott. A quick question for you from Jeff. He asks, can I run any software on virtual labs?
Great question, Jeff. So you can run not technically any software. There are limitations. And so one of the things that we would do particularly is work with you, look at your software. I would bring in my engineering team to kind of make an assessment of its capabilities and what it ties in. Generally speaking, if it's Linux-based software that can be Dockerized, put into a container, then it works. There are a number of limitations around Windows-based software and maybe some other edge cases, but generally speaking, yes.
Great, thanks, Scott. And the question that you answered earlier is, does it have to be web-based software? It could be desktop software. So you already showed both versions, which is great.
Yeah, absolutely. We like to start off with the web-based software just because it's a little bit easier for everyone to understand. But yeah, the primary, actually probably one of the primary use cases really is for desktop software, because that's the one that involves the download, the install, the provisioning, the connecting, the uploading of data sets, and all of the complicated things that are that you can imagine if you're doing a hour and a half long training, or if you're doing a long course. You don't want to spend that time having your student do administrative tasks. This cuts all that out. Great, looks like I'm pretty much running right on time. Okay, great. So at this point, I'm going to switch gears a little bit. Now we've seen that learner experience. So you're asking myself, okay, you got all these cool little buttons here that you put into your course for that learner to click on. That must have been extraordinarily complicated to set up. Surprise, it actually isn't. And so this is the outline of the course in what we call Studio. Studio is our course authoring environment. Again, you do not have to be an engineer or technical person to use Studio. I have created this entire course myself, linked to all the labs, created all the information, all the content. And again, not a technical person. So we're going to go to the section is add a virtual lab to this course. It wouldn't be something you would put to your learners because this is obviously backend, but we're going to show it here. So adding a hands-on lab to your course. So this is relatively straightforward. I'm going to start here, go back to another screen in a moment, and then come back here. In OpenEdX, and particularly Tahoe, this is how you add different pieces of content. So right to left, videos, problems, assessments, different types of text and HTML content, discussion forums. And then you notice this button with the beaker is advanced. So in advanced, we have this thing called Container Launcher, which is an XBlocks that we created. XBlocks are basically the tool that allows OpenEdX to be extensible. So you can, there's a number of different types of XBlocks that exist. So polls, PDFs, Google Docs, these are just some of the ones we have here. Ours is one that we've created is called Container Launcher. And basically this is what allows that button to exist and connect to a virtual lab. So in order to put a lab into your course, you need a few pieces of information. It's basically just 3 pieces of information and whether you want the lab to be able to be reset by your learner. And so these 3 pieces of information come from somewhere else. And that location is our Appsembler Virtual Labs management console. This is where you would manage all of your containers, all of your labs. And right now we have, this is a demo site. So we have quite a few different types of labs in here because we are always kind of showing off different stuff. But yours probably would be a little bit more streamlined and organized. In here we have all things from WordPress to Drupal, MySQL, Jupyter, different types of Jupyter exercises. So in these projects, these are where you get the information that you would put into the container launcher to create a lab. So we have what we call a stable, which is basically just our internal nomenclature for something that we're not just playing around with. So let's do TTYD, Orion, and Redis. So if I want to put this lab into my course, I just have to copy the name, the project name, put that in there. I'm going to call it Scott Live Demo Redis, and this can be any name you want, project friendly name. And then there's this thing called a project token. Project token within our lab environment is automatically generated for you once you create your lab. That's just this string of letters and numbers here. Put that in there. We're going to leave it false, which means your student can't reset the container. That's obviously optional if you want your student to be able to just kind of start over. So I'm going to save that. And this now should, when we publish this to our live site, and go back and view the live version. I'll shut down all these so I don't get confused. You see that here we are. Click to launch your Scott Live Demo Redis Lab. So let's launch that. This is, again, it's a terminal with a number of different components in it, and we're going to go see it. Going down the level of complexity, you can see that this is obviously now a terminal, basically, again, an IDE in your browser on demand. The time that it took me to spin up an IDE in my browser was seconds. Normally, this is a very, very complicated process, selecting the right one, picking it, downloading it, provisioning it. Amazing power in virtual labs. I'm not going to go through here and do the same types of exercises that I had before, but needless to say, if I went, modified this, started drafting some code, saved it, went out and came back in, all of those changes are saved. Also, this is a base image, which basically means I haven't pre-populated this with any data. I haven't pre-populated this with any exercises. And you might want to do that. And I'll be talking through how that would work on the next section. But to create that button, it was literally just those 3 pieces of information, and only 2 of them were copied. So
this is great.
Great. How am I doing overall on time?
You're doing fine on time.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you, Scott.
I know I'm speeding through this. So we're going to have Q&A after if you want me to go back and show things in a little bit slower pace. Obviously, we'll do that. Also, depending on your use case, we'd of course be happy to sit down, walk you through a personalized demo that might come a little bit more close to what you're doing, but just wanted to give everyone kind of a high-level overview of what this looks like.
Great, thanks.
Great. So from the course authoring section, we've now created this lab, or we've now connected the lab to our online learning solution, right? And that was a relatively straightforward process. But the process to create the lab itself might also seem a little bit daunting. Fortunately, it is not. Again, as a non-technical person, I myself can create labs. I'm not going to actually walk through the process just because it's a multiple steps and it's going to be a little bit boring. If somebody has a question and really wants to see it, I could definitely walk through it. But basically the long story short is you're going to start with a stable image. This can be a Dockerized image of whatever software you might want to run. And from that image, you're going get to the right tab here. From that image, you can actually go in and create a new container, enter the information that you want. So it can be content, it can be dummy data, it can be different types of exercises that you want. And that will create what's called an admin container for you to then, or once you create the admin container, that you can enter all that information, and then you take a snapshot of that image as it is with all of that data in it. And from there, that becomes the base for you to create all of your labs from. And so you would use that image, create those labs, and you'd be right back here at projects with these 2 pieces of information that you need to input into your labs. Very, very simple, very, very straightforward. You don't need to know Docker. You don't need to know, anything more than the type of information that you want in your own lab. Great. So I think the last portion that I want to go through is, actually, I did have one more thing I wanted to touch on, and now it's slipped my head. I'll move on, and maybe I'll come back to her. Maybe someone will prompt me with the question. Reading my notes. Nope. Okay. So then you notice over here there's this events component. So events are another amazing way and a very powerful way to set up lab environments for your learners instead of on demand, in the sense of a learner coming through and saying, okay, I'm ready to launch this lab. This events component allows you to pre-populate a number of labs, warm start them. So again, imagine I'm having a live course. I want all of my students to come in, sit down, and immediately jump into a lab environment. This is what allows you to do that. So let's say instead of a demo, this was a live event where I was going to have all of you spin up labs. I've pre-populated this. I'm on Eastern time. So at 11 o'clock a.m. Eastern time, which is 37 minutes ago, I wanted to spin up 20 labs for the 20 people on this call, so you could immediately jump into the exact exercises that I wanted you to run into. I've also got another one set up for later, and that could be a different class, could be the same class repeated. And so what this looks like from the learner perspective is clicked on what's called the learner dashboard. And so if I were in the lab, I would give you this URL, and I would say, hey, go to this URL and enter your email address. I've already entered mine here. And you notice that Scott Demo Class 1 started at 11 a.m. All I would have to do to launch this lab, and I don't even know if I've provisioned it, I was just showing this part, but let's do it just in case, is click this launch button. And now my pre-warmed lab, my environment that's already been spun up, would immediately deploy from here. And I would be in the lab and ready to execute immediately. Same thing would happen here. You notice that this button existed for the one that I've pre-populated, but the 12:30 p.m., which on my time is 52 minutes from now, is not ready. At 12:30 p.m. today, that button would also open up, and I would be able to spin up that lab. And so this lab was to configure the setup of WordPress. Just picked one sort of arbitrarily, but you can imagine it's any of the ones that we've discussed previously. So this is a really powerful way. If you don't have necessarily a course you want to go through, but have a live event, you can pre-warm up your labs and have them ready to roll for your learners when they arrive. I think that covers most of what I wanted to get to. Any information or questions or things I can go into a little bit deeper?
No, I think that was solid, Scott. I think we covered all the main ones, and also I know we are bumping up against time.
Yes.
So I think. So we did receive one question. Is this going to be shared? Because they want, yes, the recording will be shared afterwards. So we will definitely be emailing this out within the next 24 hours. So you can always view this again or share it with your team members.
Absolutely. And apologies if I ran through that very quickly. I wanted to make sure we hit it under time. And I know it was a lot of information. So if you want to see a slower, more targeted version, please don't hesitate to reach out. Cesar, I will pass the mic back over to you.
Lovely. I think we're going to wrap up right now. Let's see. Whoops. What we got? Absolutely. Thank you for joining us. Do you see my screen, Scott? I
do.
Lovely. So we're just going to do a quick wrap up. So some of the key takeaways, as you can see, again, Scott, thank you so much for giving us a demonstration. Whoopsie. So as you can see, virtual labs, they help you provide a more engaging learning experience. You don't need to, have your learners go through the entire process of setting up, software on their own machines or at all. So it allows you to save time and resources, and also makes it easy for for you to create labs, and for your students to access them, and for anyone to actually just embed them and create them. So if you have any further questions, I know we're bumping up against time. Please don't hesitate to reach out. You'll be receiving an email in your inbox within the next 24 hours with the recording. And if you'd like, as Scott mentioned before, if you'd like a personalized demo or want to be able to learn more about testing your particular type of software on virtual labs, reach out. You can always just reach out to us on our website or email us at any time at sales@Appsembler, and we are more than happy to connect. Again, thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. And Scott, huge thanks and props to you for pulling this demo together. This has been really informative for us. Thank you all so much, and have a wonderful day.
Take care, everybody. Thanks.
Bye.